Good afternoon, Frogbuck. How is everybody doing? Anyways, I wanted to talk a little about what my plans are in the future. It seems that the writing career, if I wanted to be paid for it, there's authors out there, they're a dime a dozen. There's journalists out there, they're a dime a dozen too, and most of them are corrupted Democrats who will not let a conservative writer in. And most of the conservative outlets themselves are a bunch of elitist snobs. So I just wanted to state something why I would like to be an investigative journalist if someone gave me the opportunity, like an Alex Jones outlet and InfoWars, and why I'm so anti-drug. Okay. When I became homeless in the middle of 2008, I searched everywhere for a shelter home, and the only shelter home I found when I couldn't find a job right away was in Granville County, North Carolina. There, they have a shelter home that's privately ran by the Christian Cornerstone Church. And that's basically where I started to get sick and ill. What transpired was I was looking for jobs daily with my car, going into the county seat and the employment commission and trying to apply for jobs. Well, the church didn't like that, being that I was also helping out the church clean up their rectory and their sanctuary and their premises, but they didn't like it when I left and went to go do things to better myself. Mind you, this was an all-black church, okay? Well, my roommate basically got sick, and he got the flu, and he defecated all over himself, all over the bed, all over the floor, and never cleaned it up. Unfortunately, I got the flu next in December 2008. So the female pastor there that was put in charge of us in the little shelter home they had, she asked me why I was leaving every day. And I said, I'm looking for jobs. It's really none of your business. And she always caught an attitude because she was put in a position of power, and she really didn't know how to handle it, dealing with convicts all the time that were homeless, not with someone that was upstanding that just fell on some bad luck. So I had the flu from this guy, my roommate across the way. He never cleaned up his defecated matter. And in the end of December, the lady came up to me, the lady pastor who was put in this position of authority, came up to me and said, well, you got a job? And I said, well, it's supposed to start January 15th. She said, well, January 15th, that's your last day here. Good luck to you. I went to speak to the pastor. His name is Pastor Jerome Betts, I believe it was, or David Betts. And he said, well, he has to agree with the pastor this time. And I said, well, what about all the other people that are convicts? They're not looking for jobs. Well, each his own, and everybody helps out the church the best way they can. And you would think I hold a grudge against this church. I don't. I have long since forgave them for their racism, for how they treated me, how they expected me to clean up the man's shit. A bunch of convicts trying to tell me, an ex-police officer, what to do. Okay? But they wouldn't do it themselves. So it was basically like them trying to act like now the white man's the slave. I don't hold a grudge against them. They're stupid. They might not amount to anything in their life, and I really don't give a care. What I care about is a godly church that practices what they preach. And the Christian Cornerstone Church does not. And it won't. But anyways, that's not the point of this whole harangue here. So what transpired was I had the flu, and they kicked me out in the middle of January, so I had the flu now for almost a month. It became pneumonia. So I migrated to Richmond, and I joined the VCC Indigent Care Program to get amoxicillin, and they prescribed amoxicillin and albuterol to clean out my lungs and expand my lung tissue. So I was riding around Richmond for quite a few months. I got rid of this, and about March and April, I used the albuterol on an empty stomach, and it caused severe tachycardia. And if anybody knows what tachycardia does, it feels like you're about to die and your whole body's going to explode. Okay. I was only 200 over 100 blood pressure. So I went to another hospital that was close to where my car was parked. I went to the Retreat Hospital in the Fan in West Richmond, and they prescribed Ativan. Okay, I used Ativan, and it lowered my heart rate, and I got some sleep that night for about a couple hours in the emergency room. And they knew I was homeless. They didn't kick me out right away, so I got some sleep. But every day after that, I experienced a panic attack for about 2 years. So being part of this VCC program, I asked them, what could I use? I mean, something's going wrong here with my system. And it all started with the albuterol. Okay, so they tried, I said, Ativan worked. Will that help as like a PRN? And they said, yeah. And so I used it whenever I thought a panic attack was going to happen. What was starting to happen was I did a lot of damage to my lungs. So when I would breathe and I got a little stressed out, I would experience a panic attack because my lungs were not taking in enough oxygen. The carbon monoxide would build up and the nitrogen would build up. And what that does is that causes a panic attack because of the lack of oxygen going to the brain. So I went on and I tried a lot of different medications. Most of them were benzodiazepines. And being a drug expert, I know that benzodiazepines can cause you to have a heart attack, especially long term, if you're lucky. So I said, no. I want something better, something non-narcotic, something that won't kill me. Okay. And by this time I started dating a lady in Fredericksburg, and she said, come up to Fredericksburg, move in with me. Okay. And she said, join the Moss Clinic. So I joined the Moss Clinic. Well, they offered me Seroquel because of my concerns. So the first time I ever took Seroquel, I felt a dry kind of gassy feeling in my lower half. And it hurt right below my navel. And I couldn't explain it because it didn't feel like gas moving. It felt like something stationary. Okay. And it was sort of painful and discomforting. But in any event, after about 4 or 5 months of registered with Moss Clinic and looking for jobs, because I never stopped looking for jobs, no matter what the panic attacks were doing. But it turns out it was more the drugs than it was my actual body. So at that point, I was using Seroquel, and I noticed going outside in the heat, it was super hot, and it did not work well. It made me gain weight too, like 30 plus pounds. So I tried to stop using it, and I found out it was almost addictive as any other drug. Whatever you want to call it, alcohol, drugs, benzodiazepines, heroin, I don't care. When I tried to get off it the first time, it was like 4 days without sleep. Okay. And that's enough to make anybody crazy. So I didn't flip out. What I did was I used it sparingly, and I used it to sleep at night, and I used less and less dosages of it. So then I had my first perforation at the same location in my lower colon, and I got severely sick. And like I said before, the ex-girlfriend, she was like, didn't even want to take me to the hospital. Oh, stick it out, tough it out. I was like, no, I got to go. My hands were shaking. I was sweating. There was all kinds of negative stuff going on. And it turns out I would have died because I would have became septic. That happened twice. So during the surgeries, the doctors were like saying, oh, well, we can put you on something else like Latuda. I took Latuda for about a week, and after the first week, I found myself staring off into space looking at this dark abyss. And I literally felt like if I wanted to commit suicide, I would. There would be no inhibitions or some kind of inhibited response where I would stop myself. So I got off the Latuda, and I got off everything. So I started walking back from the dead, and for 7 months after all 3 surgeries, I couldn't hardly walk. maybe 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet if I was lucky, and then my stomach would hurt severely. And everything works, but everything was reconnected, so everything was freshly raw and healing itself. It just didn't heal overnight. So I investigated Moss Clinic, and I asked them, I said, well, what about the 4 surgery? And what about the Seroquel y'all gave me? And they would not help me. They would not re-enlist me. After a lot of time passed, they would not re-enlist me again. So I looked up Mary Washington, and I looked up the bad drug Seroquel, and it turns out Seroquel is not a safe drug at all. It causes diabetes, it causes obesity, it causes heart disease, it causes everything, as if you were eating pure sugar for about 30 years straight. Okay? It kills your pancreas, it kills your liver, it kills your kidneys. So I stayed off it, and lo and behold, I never had a panic attack. I didn't have panic attacks before the albuterol. Okay? But the Seroquel was making me feel like, oh my God, I can't even walk in sunlight or feel like I'm having a sunstroke. So it turns out AstraZeneca makes Seroquel. They made so many billions of dollars on Seroquel over a 10-year period, and they promoted it as a safe and effective drug. Well, it was effective. It can knock your ass out, and you can go to sleep for hours. You'd wake up 24 hours later sometimes. But you wouldn't have that initial heart attack like the benzodiazepines or some kind of narcotic. So, I investigated Virginia State because they settled with AstraZeneca in a class action lawsuit. And it turns out this class action lawsuit paid, I believe, $2 billion to all the states. Whatever it was, it came out to about $50 million to each state. So I called up the Virginia Treasurer's office and the department underneath them, which is risk management. And I said, okay, under the Freedom of Information Act, where's all this money? All this money went back to free clinics. The same free clinics that are pushing these bad drugs that are still getting kickbacks from AstraZeneca also. Okay? So what they're doing is they're circulating the money between the people who make the bad drug, the people who can give it to you, and then if the judicial process comes in at all, they spread a little money out and it gets sent back to them. Figure that out. Okay? Now, I don't hold a lot of grudges, and I don't begrudge some drugs that work. But you need to get off your medications, period. Okay? If it's any kind of white pill. That is one of the biggest giveaways. The gelatin alone in these white pills can bore holes through your stomach. Did you know that? Yes, it also causes severe acid reflux because your body does not basically process gelatin in a good way. Okay? It makes you fatter. It's harder on your liver to process. And it will kill you one way or another. Okay? But the chemicals in it is something to research too. So I bring this up because Alex Jones, if you look at yesterday's episode, I believe it was May 1, he went on a harangue for about an hour about everything he said before, 15, 20 years ago. Pretty interesting. Okay? Because now the same pharmaceutical companies are basically saying, yeah, so what? Because they got these liberals in the government, and I mean Republicans too. They got these liberal pieces of shit in the government that are allowing these bad drugs to just keep on flourishing. Okay? Get off Latuda too, especially if you think that's helpful. And you're a normal person and you thought normal before, but you're suffering some depression. Okay? Alex Jones talked about this, and I said this from day one back in my MySpace days. If you research all the supplements I know in my head, and I've researched since 2003 that are good for you, okay, especially following people like Kevin Trudeau, 5-HTP will actually produce good serotonin levels and dopamine levels in your brain, and you'll escape that depression. But another thing is you need to work on your spirituality. I believe in Jesus, and I'm not perfect. But when I speak his name and I speak about him, all evil leaves me. Okay, like I said, I'm not perfect. I might do evil things in my life, but I feel I am saved and I'm trying my best not to on a daily basis. My spirituality is I can look at myself in the mirror and I can enjoy myself. I can enjoy living day to day. Excuse me. I love what I do. Okay. I can do just about anything in this world I set my mind to, except probably be a president like Mr. Trump. Research your drug you're on and ask yourself, why do you need it? Is there a healthy alternative that's already in nature? You need to do that, or you're just giving up on life, because your medications will kill you. Okay? That's just a fact. They're going to kill you one way or another, and you're kidding yourself, thinking that you can settle for 30% of your worth. Okay? That 30% is not going to last 20, 30 years with the same medications over and over again. But anyways, back to AJ and InfoWars. I wish Mr. Corsi in D.C. that is now working with AJ, I wish he'd look me up. You'd be surprised what I can investigate with my background, and I don't want to do a resume to tell you about it. But as it is, the journalists and everybody else taking these jobs, they block people out. Not AJ, not InfoWars. You know, they can only hire so many people. But I'm talking about the liberal media and even part of the Republican brainwashed liberal media. They have no place for people that want to talk the truth. Okay? Do you think they're telling you the truth about your medications? Speak to your doctor, get a second opinion, and try to change the direction the ship is going so you live a longer life, a more godly life. God bless, guys. Have a good day.